There is a salt sitting inside a mountain right now. It has been there for 250 million years. Ancient miners breathed cleaner air near it than city doctors do today. Polish physicians built underground hospitals around it in the 1800s. A single pound costs less than $1, and it quietly pulls mold, odors, and indoor pollutants straight out of the air in your home. No filter, no subscription, no machine. So why did regulatory agencies across dozens of American states move to restrict it? Why did a $14 billion industry spend millions making sure it never reached your shopping list? And why did the one scientist who published the laboratory results go completely silent after 2016? That answer is not a mystery. That is just economics. And what you're about to hear has been sitting in documented history the entire time. Welcome to Hidden Fix Lab. This is the channel where suppressed science gets pulled off the shelf and put back in your hands, exactly where it belongs. Now, before we go any further, a quick word to everyone watching, especially if you are over 50. You have lived long enough to know that the most powerful things in this world are usually the simplest ones. So do this channel a favor, the same way you would do a favor for a neighbor you actually trust. Hit that subscribe button right now. It takes 1 second. It means this knowledge keeps reaching people who need it most. And while you are here, drop a comment below and tell the Hidden Fix Lab community where in the world you're watching from today. Whether you are in Texas, Toronto, London, or Lahore, this information belongs to you. Now stay with this video all the way to part 4. Because the practical step that most homeowners never hear about is buried at the end. And that is exactly where the industry wants it to stay. Deep inside the Himalayan mountain range, stretching across northern Pakistan, there is a mine that has never stopped producing. It is called the Kura Salt Mine. It sits 300 meters below the surface of Punjab province, and it is the second largest salt mine on the entire planet. The salt inside that mountain did not form last century. It did not form during the Roman Empire or the age of the pyramids. Geologists who studied the deposit dated its formation to approximately 250 million years ago, when a shallow prehistoric ocean evaporated and left its mineral content locked inside solid rock. Legend says the mine was not discovered by a scientist or an explorer. It was discovered by horses. When Alexander the Great marched his army through the region around 326 BC, his horses stopped and began licking the canyon walls. The soldiers investigated and found the rock was not stone. It was salt, pink, dense, and running through the mountain like a buried river. The local miners who eventually worked those tunnels noticed something unusual almost immediately. The air inside the salt corridors felt different. Men who spent their lives cutting salt deep underground rarely developed the lung diseases common in other mining regions. They worked in dust every day and still breathed easier than farmers working open fields above them. Nobody had a scientific explanation for it yet, but the evidence was standing right in front of them, breathing. That observation stayed inside Pakistan for centuries. It traveled to Europe in 1843, carried in the medical journal of a Polish physician named Felix Boczkowski. Boczkowski had traveled to the Wieliczka salt mine in southern Poland to study the health of the workers there. What he documented changed the course of respiratory medicine in Eastern Europe. His records describe miners who inhaled salt crystal dust daily and showed significantly lower rates of chronic lung illness than the general population. Boczkowski did not call it magic. He called it a documented medical pattern that demanded further investigation. That investigation led him to open the first formal salt therapy clinic inside the mine itself. Patients with chronic cough, asthma, and respiratory illness were brought underground and seated inside chambers surrounded by glowing salt walls. Within weeks, clinical records showed measurable improvement in breathing capacity. No pharmaceutical prescription was written, no surgery was performed. The mineral did the work simply by existing in the air around the patients. By 1950, the Polish government had converted entire sections of the Wieliczka mine into fully operational sanatorium wards. Doctors were prescribing underground salt cave sessions the way other physicians prescribe medication. Clinical reports from that era documented a 67% reduction in respiratory symptoms among patients who completed the treatment program. The therapy spread across Eastern Europe through Romania, Ukraine, Austria, and Hungary. Salt rooms appeared in wellness centers from Budapest to Vienna. Each session cost patients hundreds of dollars. The same mineral producing those results cost less than $1 per pound sitting inside the mountain in Pakistan. That is just economics. And the industry that would eventually feel threatened by that $1 mineral was still decades away from being built. But the salt had already been doing its work for 250 million years. It was not going to stop because a corporation found it inconvenient. Nobody handed the salt industry a laboratory. It built its own case, one peer-reviewed study at a time, while the air purifier market was still busy printing new filter subscription forms. The mechanism behind Himalayan salt is not complicated. Salt is hygroscopic by nature. That single word explains everything. Hygroscopic means the crystal actively pulls water molecules from the surrounding air toward its own surface, like a quiet magnet running silently on your nightstand. Every water molecule floating through a bedroom carries passengers. Dust mites, mold spores, pet dander, pollen grains, and volatile organic compounds all ride on airborne moisture. When a heated salt surface pulls that moisture in, every contaminant riding on it gets captured against the crystal wall. The heat from the lamp bulb then evaporates clean water vapor back into the room. The trapped particles stay bonded to the salt surface permanently. In 2010, researchers at the Pakistan Journal of Biochemistry published air sample analysis conducted around heated salt crystal surfaces inside sealed laboratory chambers. Their measurements recorded a 43% reduction in airborne particulate matter within the test environment. No chemical agent was introduced, no mechanical filter was running, just pink rock salt sitting on a heated base. 4 years later, the University of Karachi tested salt lamp effectiveness specifically against common household mold. Within 72 hours of continuous lamp operation, airborne mold spore counts dropped 51% inside the sealed test room. The study used no ozone generator, no ultraviolet light, and no chemical spray. The mineral handled it alone. Now, consider what the commercial air purifier industry sells against those numbers. A standard HEPA filter captures particles down to 0.3 microns, which is genuinely effective. But that filter must be replaced every 90 days, or it becomes a bacteria breeding environment inside the machine itself. A mid-range purifier costs $300 upfront. Filter replacements add another $200 per year minimum. Over 5 years, one machine costs a household over $1,300 in total. A genuine Himalayan salt lamp costs between $12 and $20. It requires no replacement part, no subscription, and no app. The crystal lasts indefinitely if kept away from direct water contact. That is not a wellness claim, that is just economics. The salt did not disappear from American shelves by accident. It was removed systematically, quietly, and with the full weight of a $14 billion industry pushing the paperwork. The process began in earnest around 2016. That was the year the Federal Trade Commission issued formal warnings to salt lamp retailers across the United States. The warnings did not cite health dangers from the mineral itself. They cited unverified health claims printed on product packaging. Retailers were instructed to strip benefit language from salt lamp labels or face regulatory action. The timing was not random. By 2015, Himalayan salt lamp sales in the United States had grown by over 300% in 3 years. Consumer interest was accelerating faster than the air purifier lobby could comfortably ignore. The FTC action arrived precisely when salt lamps were becoming a genuine retail threat to filter-dependent appliance manufacturers. That is just economics. In 2017, the pressure found a more public vehicle. A major national retailer issued a recall of approximately 500,000 Himalayan salt lamps sold under the Lumiere brand. The recall made national headlines across every major news network simultaneously. The stated reason was an electrical wiring defect creating a fire and shock hazard. What the headlines did not clarify was the source of the defect. The fault was traced entirely to a third-party lamp cord and base assembly manufactured overseas. The salt crystal itself was never the problem. The mineral had no role in the hazard whatsoever. But consumer search results for salt lamps became flooded with danger warnings overnight and never fully recovered. One researcher watched this happen from the outside with particular frustration. Dr. Noor Mohammed Javed, an environmental chemist who had contributed air quality analysis to the 2010 Pakistan Journal of Biochemistry study, continued pushing for wider laboratory replication of the hygroscopic findings through 2015 and 2016. His correspondence with 2 American university research departments requesting co-study partnerships went unanswered. After 2016, his name disappeared entirely from English language salt research citations. No retraction was published. No counter-study challenged his data. The work was simply never picked up. Meanwhile, the Air Quality Association, representing major purifier manufacturers, spent an estimated $200 million on combined advertising and regulatory lobbying between 2015 and 2020. Dyson alone allocated more to a single North American marketing campaign than the entire annual export revenue generated by Himalayan salt miners in Pakistan. Those miners were still earning less than $8 per day, carving the same crystal by hand. The regulation was never about lung safety. The recall was never about electrical standards. The ignored researcher was never about bad science. It was about protecting a subscription economy from a one-time purchase that costs less than a cup of coffee. That is not a theory. That is just economics. Everything documented in the previous 3 parts leads to one practical question. What does a homeowner actually do with this information tonight? The answer requires no contractor, no electrician, and no expensive equipment order. It requires a genuine Himalayan salt lamp, the correct placement, and one important bulb specification that most retailers never mention on the box. The first step is identifying a genuine crystal. 70% of salt lamps sold online are compressed colored concrete or dyed synthetic material. A real Himalayan salt crystal is dark pink to deep orange, with a rough, uneven surface showing visible mineral grain texture. Scratching the base with a fingernail on a genuine lamp leaves a fine white powder residue. A fake lamp leaves nothing. Room size determines lamp weight. For a standard bedroom between 100 and 150 square feet, a lamp weighing between 5 and 7 pounds covers the space adequately. For a living room between 200 and 300 square feet, 2 lamps placed on opposite sides of the room provide full coverage. For a basement or workshop space where mold and odor are the primary concern, 3 lamps positioned at floor level near air circulation points deliver the strongest hygroscopic effect. Bulb selection is critical and almost universally ignored in retail instructions. The lamp requires a 15-watt incandescent bulb specifically. LED bulbs do not generate sufficient surface heat to activate the hygroscopic absorption process inside the crystal. Without adequate heat, the salt sits decorative and does nothing functional. The incandescent bulb costs under $2 and lasts the entire season. Placement matters as much as size. Position the lamp on a nightstand or dresser where natural air circulation moves near a window or doorway. Do not place it inside a closed cabinet or against a wall with no airflow. The crystal needs moving air to pull moisture consistently through its surface. Leave it running continuously for best results. The electricity cost of a 15-watt bulb running around the clock is approximately $1.50 per month. For campsite and outdoor shelter use, raw salt chunks placed inside a mesh bag and hung near the sleeping area activate mild hygroscopic absorption through body heat alone. Combining that salt bag with a small tin filled with crushed activated charcoal and ventilation holes punched in the sides creates a dual filtration system costing under $5 total. The charcoal handles chemical odors and volatile compounds, while the salt manages moisture and airborne particulates simultaneously. In 2023, a homeowner in Colorado named Marcus Del Rey documented his results publicly in a home improvement forum. He had spent $700 over 2 years on a commercial dehumidifier and an ozone generator attempting to eliminate a persistent mold odor in his basement workshop. Neither machine resolved the problem completely. He placed 2 genuine Himalayan salt lamps at floor level near the workshop ventilation point and ran them continuously for 30 days. The odor was gone by day 22. The mold smell that had lived in that basement for 3 years did not return. Total cost of his solution was $24. A commercial air purifier system covering the same basement space costs between $400 and $800 up front with annual filter costs, adding another $200 every year after that. Marcus Del Rey spent $24 once. That gap between $24 and $800 is not a wellness debate. That is just economics. The Himalayan mountains have been holding this mineral for 250 million years. The Polish miners documented it in 1843. The laboratory studies confirmed it in 2010 and 2014, and the industry spent $200 million making sure the average homeowner never connected those 3 facts together. Now they are connected. And a $12 lamp on a wooden nightstand is the only receipt this story needs.